Thank you a lot. You are seeing the presentation completely, yeah?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the acceptance of my paper. I am very pleased. And I will take off my camera in order you to concentrate. The concept of divinity from ancient to Semitic cultures. The concept of divinity, unlike the name of God, lends itself more easily to linguistic, cultural, theological, and philosophical comparisons, especially before the emergence of the Abrahamic religions, since the term for divinity in ancient and Semitic cultures has linguistic cognates in several languages of the civilization of Mesopotamia and the Levantine Mediterranean. The paper carries out a linguistic conceptual analysis from each language and culture, showing how the concept of divinity in polytheistic Mesopotamian cultures such as Sumerian, Ugaritic, Akkadian, Hittite, and Assyrian is included in a pantheon of divinities, while in Semitic cultures such as Hebrew, Aramaic, Christian, and pre-Islamic and post-Islamic Arab, the concept of divinity shows a development from hierarchical and syncretic polytheistic pantheons to enotheism and monotheism, finally reaching strict monotheism with Judaism and Islam and Trinitarian monotheism with Christianity. When we see the ancient languages and cultures, in the ancient cultures and languages of Mesopotamia and Anatolia, the concepts of God and divinity were expressed through terms and representation that reflected their worldview and spiritual hierarchy. In Sumerian, the term Dingir was used to refer to a deity or divine being, and was a common prefix in the names of the gods. In Akkadian, the equivalent was Ilu, which also denote divinity. In Assyrian culture, the gods were considered protectors of the empire. In Ugaritic, the gods were called Il, and among the Hittites, the gods were known as Shiu. We'll see one by one. In Sumerian, an isolated language of ancient Mesopotamia, the idea of divinity is generally expressed with a sign representing a linguistic unit called a logogram. In fact, the Sumerian logogram lineage, you can see it there, also functions as a determinative placed before the name of a deity. Thus, this logogram can refer both to the sky and to the idea of a divinity, connecting the deities with the firmament. So, the divinity implies a higher force or presence that influences cosmic, natural, and human aspects. The term god or deity in Sumerian is also represented by the logogram Dingir, but when used in combination with specific names, it denotes a specific deity such as Dingir An, meaning the sky god, An or Anu. In summary, in Sumerian, Dingir is a logogram for the divine and a determinative term identifying deities, as will be seen in other Asian languages. In Akkadian, an Eastern Semitic language used in Mesopotamia also, the idea of divinity is usually expressed by the word Ilutu, which translates as divinity or divine nature. This term refers to the divine essence or the attribute possessed by the gods in their transcendent, transcendent state. The most common term for god or deity in Akkadian is Ilum. You can see some writing there in Akkadian. And it is related to the Sumerian logogram Dingir adopted by the Akkadians in their writing system. On the one hand, the term Ilum is used to refer to any particular god or deity. It also appears in the plural as Ilum, meaning gods or a group of divine beings. On the other hand, it also appears as a particular god, such as Ilum Shamash, or the sun god, or Ilum Marduk, the well-known Babylonian god Marduk. In Akkadian, the term Ilum refers to the deities of a pantheon, and metaphorically to something exalted, powerful, or sacred. Thus, the main figures of the Mesopotamian pantheon, such as Anu, god of the sky, Enlil, god of the air, and Ea, god of the deep waters, were called Ilum to emphasize their divine nature. Thus, in Sumerian, Ilum was used as a determinative of divinity before the names of the deities. In fact, the Assyriologist Ignace J. Gelb established from the scarce Akkadian sources of the Pre-Sargonic period that between the Sumerians and the Akkadians in the field of religion, we can observe the very common use of the element Il in the Akkadian theophoric names, which seems to indicate that the god Il was the chief divinity of the Mesopotamian Semites in the Pre-Sargonic period. For theophoric names were very common. The theophoric names were very common in Mesopotamia and the ancient Near East. This onomastic practice consists of adding a god's name. Okay, try not to brighten the board, please. This onomastic practice consists of adding a god's name to the proper name of person who worships him. This makes it impossible to determine which god is hidden behind Il's name. It could be Adonai or it could be some other god, but El, meaning God, seems to function both as the name of a particular god and as a generic term. Indeed, the forms Ilu and Ilum are ambiguous, as are the logographically brightened forms with Dinger, but many of these forms are also undoubtedly the divine name. In fact, the special Lidingerlum or Ilum can even be found as my God is Ilum. In Assyrian, a dialect of Akkadian in northern Mesopotamia, the term Ilutu is used to refer to divinity or the divine essence, which includes the sacred and superhuman nature of the deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon, highlighting their power and transcendence. In Assyrian texts, the word Ilanu can be used to refer collectively to gods or divine beings, referring to the pantheon of gods as a whole. If someone can erase these marks, it will be wonderful, okay? If not, I can continue. The most common term in Assyrian for God is still Ilum, which has the same meaning as in Akkadian, denoting both an individual deity and the concept of God in general, and the Sumerian determinative Dingir is used before the names of deities in Assyrian to indicate their divine status. For example, we can find Ilum Ashur, the supreme god of the Assyrian pantheon, associated with the city of Ashur, Ilum Shamash, the god of the sun and justice, and finally, Ilum Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and fertility. The use in Assyrian text, Ilum is a fundamental religious term and a cultural marker of the centrality of religion in political, social, and military life. In fact, the concept of Ilum extends to kings with divine authority. Just bashed. I don't know why are you doing that, but it's not good for anyone. In fact, the concept of Ilum extends to kings with divine authority, who are considered chosen or favored by the gods. Thus, the Assyrian terms Ilum, God, or an Ilutu, divinity, are used to express the relationship between human beings and the gods, as well as to describe the supernatural power embodied by the deities. In the language Hittite, an Indo-European language of Anatolia, actual Turkey, there are some people from Turkey here, use the Sumerian logogram Dingir to express the concept of divinity, which determines the divine status of that god or deity. While the Hittite equivalent to the abstract concept of divinity is the word Siuna, Siuna or Siwanash, which translates as divine essence or divine nature, in general applying both to gods and deified kings. The term God, the main term for God in Hittite, is Sios or Sius, meaning God. in the singular. The plural ciunes, excuse me, I think that we should stop here. I don't know what to do. Benedict or someone.
Yeah, I don't know how it technically works. That somebody can can paint in there, but
The
refrain
the one
from.
who opened the meeting, I think that he can do something
Perhaps
because if not,
you stop sharing your screen
okay,
and start sharing it again. I have no idea what's
okay,
going on.
okay, I did it.
Okay, so
That
share it
works.
again.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, and so please, whoever knows how to paint on this, please refrain from doing so.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks a lot, and excuse me. So the main term for God in Hittite is Zeus, or Zeus meaning God. In the singular, the plural Siunes or Siues, or gods in general, is also found and represents the Hittite pantheon. The Hittites were polytheistic, and their pantheon included a large number of gods, both indigenous and adopted from neighboring cultures such as Hurrian and Mesopotamian. In religious and votive texts, the determinative Dingir also precedes the names of deities, such as Dingir Tarhuna, the god Tarhuna, or Dingir Arina, the sun goddess. Hittite kings were also deified, so they were considered representatives of the gods on earth and received divine honors after their death. So let's see the Semitic cultures and languages. Between the Western Semitic and Eastern Semitic languages, thanks to the comparative linguistic method, two hypothetical terms are represented for the terms deity, divinity, and God, Il and Ilah. First, the hypothetical Proto-Semitic word Il, meaning God, deity, or used as a proper name for the multiple major deities of the Near East in antiquity. This word is reconstructed from Akkadian Ilum, Ugaritic Ilu or Il, Hebrew El, Samaritan El, Syriac Il, and Arabic Il. From Ammonite Lem, from Phoenician Il, or for ancient Greek El. Second, the Proto-Semitic term ilah are derived Aramaic, derived from Aramaic elaha, Samaritan Aramaic elaha also, a classic Syriac alaha, Hebrew Eloah or Elohim, and Old South Arabic lah. We don't know how to pronounce it very well, as well as the Arabic terms ilah and the well-known Allah. Let's see the Ugaritic. In Ugaritic, a northwestern Semitic language, the general concept of divinity is expressed by the term ilham. We don't know how to pronounce it very well, just the first vocal, which translates as gods. In the plural, this term encompasses all the deities of the Canaanite pantheon. The Ugaritic term for God or deity in the singular is Il. In a general sense, this term has a usage similar to the Sumerian terms Dingir or Akkadian Ilu. We can see pictures of the language I am talking about, okay? The term Il itself is used as a determinative or prefix before the names of deities to indicate their status or divine essence, as in the Sumerian logogram Dingir. In the Ugarit pantheon and mythology, Ilu or Il is the supreme god, the father of the gods, and the creator of the universe is found in mythical texts, epics, pantheon lists, and temple records alongside deities such as Baal, very well known, the storm god, which demonstrate his use of proper name as the supreme god of ancient Canaanite religion. For he was considered the preeminent god or perhaps the incarnate divinity. Hence, it might refer to being divinity and a proper name. Yeah, in fact, for the Canaanites and the world, excuse me, yeah, it became inclusive when they found the Ugaritic literature like 100 years ago. They say the one who found it. It became increasingly evident to biblical scholars that some uses of El in the Bible are not actually intended to refer in the generic sense of deity or God of Israel, one of the meanings of El, but are references to the proper name of the head of the Canaanite pantheon. He is even seen as the supreme god of this pantheon, for he was the ancient father god of the Canaanites, husband of the goddess Ashira, equivalent to the Mesopotamian and Anu of the Sumerian language. It is attested in a list of venerated gods used in the course of sacrificial rituals in which they are mentioned in order. Ilu Sapuni, the gods of Mount Sapuni, Ilu Ibi, god of the father, and Ilu, as well as Atsu, Washamuna, earth and heaven, maintaining that Semitic foundation in the names that will later be revealed in Biblical Hebrew and Quranic Arabic. The Hebrew, the concept of divinity in Rabbinic or Mishnaic Hebrew, is expressed with Elohut, which denotes the abstract divine essence, the quality of being God, or the nature of the sacred. This term does not appear explicitly in the Bible, but derives from the Hebrew root for God, the word God. The most common terms of God in Biblical Hebrew in the Bible are first Elohim, a morphological plural, but usually used with a singular verb when referring to the one God of Israel. This plural can be interpreted as a plural for majesty, emphasizing God's greatness and sovereignty. Second, the less common singular Eloah, which appears mainly in biblical poetry, as in the book of Job, with the same sense. But the older generic Hebrew term for God or deity is El, such as in Ugaritic and Akkadian, and is used in combinations such as El Shaddai or God Almighty, while Adonai is the personal name of God in Israelite tradition revealed to Moses in the episode of the burning bush. This name, known as the Tetragrammaton, is considered sacred and it is not pronounced directly. Instead, one says Adonai, which means Lord. Excuse me. Yeah, as in Akkadian, the theophoric name in Hebrew El is constant in the Hebrew Bible, with several proper and place names referring to him, such as Eliezer, Elias, Elohim, El Shaddai, Elion, or with suffix like Azrael, Bethel, Daniel, Emmanuel, Ezekiel, and Israel, to name a few. The term in Hebrew El is a generic word for God that could be used for any divinity, including the god Hadad in Ugaritic Haddu and in Akkadian Din of the Canaanite and ancient Mesopotamian religions, or it is also used for the god Adonai in ancient Hebrew, also Adonai. In Aramaic, the concept of divinity in Aramaic, a Middle Eastern Semitic language, can be expressed by the term Elahuta, which derives from the root Aleph Lamed Ha, Aleph Lamed Ha, shared with all the other Semitic languages. This term refers to the divine essence in philosophical and theological context, or to the nature of being a deity in biblical and late Aramaic. The primary term for God in Aramaic is Elaha, which is also derived from the root Aleph Lamed Ha, used in Biblical Aramaic, and as in the Old Testament book of Daniel and Ezra, means a generic God as to the supreme God in monotheistic context. In the plural, the Aramaic term is Elahim, which can refer to gods or present a plural majestatic usage as in Hebrew Elohim. In the biblical text of the book of Daniel, the term Elaha is used to designate the one God of Judaism, while in ancient Aramaic inscriptions, the term Elaha refers to a generic God and to specific deities in polytheistic context. The old Aramaic terms for God and gods are Alhi, Alhan, or Alhim, in addition to the expression Al-Hi bit Abi, the gods of my father's house, is found. Likewise, in Imperial Aramaic, a compilation of deity listings was found in which Al is presented as the supreme Semitic god. In Syriac, a Christian language, the concept of divinity in Syriac, a variant of Aramaic spoken in the Levant by the Christians, is expressed by the term Allahuta, which comes from the root Allah, related to the idea of the divine or the sacred. This term refers to the divine nature or essence in the Christian theological context to describe the divinity of God. In Syriac, a dialect of Aramaic, Alaha is a linguistic cognate of the Aramaic term Elaha and is related to the Hebrew Eloah. Alaha in Syriac became the term to refer to the Christian God and to speak of God the Father in the context of the Trinity. Thus maintaining a Semitic linguistic substratum in Aramaic, Syriac, Hebrew, and Arabic later on, but differentiating in each culture its theological understanding and liturgical use. In Syriac Christian texts like this one, such as the Syriac translation of the Bible called Peshitta, Allah is used to translate the Hebrew terms Elohim and Adonai, adapting them to a Christian context and has a close linguistic and phonetic relationship with the Quranic Arabic term Allah. In the pre-Islamic Arabic languages, this is in Saudi Arabia right now, Ula, this is the city, divinity. The concept of divinity in Old South Arabic, a set of South Semitic languages spoken in ancient Arabia, can be interpreted through the term laham. We don't know how to pronounce it because there are no vowels and we cannot do it, which is the basic Semitic root shared with languages such as Akkadian Ilum, Hebrew Eloah, and Classical Arabic Ilah. Although originally referring to deity in general, it also represents the divine essence or the idea of the sacred in a more abstract context. In Southern Arabic polytheism, before Islam of course, the term lah was used in the singular to designate a god or god in general, although it also accompanied the name of the deity to whom worship was directed. In the monotheistic context that began to emerge before Islam, the term Laham seems to have acquired a more exclusive character, preluding the development of the term Allah in classical Arabic and the religion of Islam. In the Old South Arabic languages, this term means in Sabian dialect God, goddess, divinity, and is equivalent to the Arabic terms ilah, ilaha, and ma'bud, meaning deity, divinity, and a being that is worshipped. This transfer from the theoretical conception of divinity to the worshipped deity is common among Israelites and Arab Semites, with functions for such a divinity as varied, such as father, divine kinsman, benevolent protector, or head of a mythological divine council. In pre-Islamic Arabic inscription, in their Sabaean and Minaic dialects, the form we don't know how to pronounce it, appears frequently in contexts related to the worship of multiple gods, highlighting the polytheistic characters of these cultures. Now, in the Arabic language, Islamic or Quranic language, the concept of divinity in Arabic, a Semitic language which roots in the Quranic text, is expressed by the abstract and theological term of uluhiyya, which comes from the root alif lam ha, like the other Semitic languages, and it is related to the divine in the monotheistic tawhid of Islamic doctrine, which emphasizes the absolute oneness of God and relates to the notion of worship and the relationship of the human being to the sacred. The term for God in Arabic is Allah. The Muslims and the Christians use them in the Bible or in the Quran. The unique and specific name of the God of Islamic monotheism, which derive from the root alif, lam, lam, ha, and it is a contraction of al-ilah, the latter literally meaning the God. This term is also used by Arab Christians and Jews to refer, who speak Arabic, of course, to refer to God in a monotheistic context in their translation of the Hebrew and Christian Bible. Let's hear some short conclusions. The analysis shows how the Sumerians sign to represent a divinity, Dingir, whether male or female, is included in the Ugaritic pantheon Il as a paternal figure of a deity, creator of gods and humans. Likewise, at the same time, while in the Akkadian pantheon, Ilu does not designate a specific deity, while the Hebrews will collect both uses of being creator and, despite being a divinity among others, is the superior and only divinity worthy of worships among Jews, as we said, and also among Muslims later on. In synthesis, it is shown how the conception of a supreme and paternal divinity is transferred from ancient cultures from a naturalistic anthropomorphism that identifies it with the sky or with the sun among the Phoenician and others, to a theological abstraction of God, the creator in the Semitic religions, maintaining the paternal and anthropomorphic figure only in Christianity. Thanks a lot for your attention and muito obrigado pela boa atenção. That's all.